Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mark Anthony's Music Picks. Today is episode 129, and before I get started today, I want to say thank you to one of my viewers or subscribers that used the donation link that I've been putting down in the bottom of my videos to send a little PayPal donation over. That was the first one I got, and I really appreciate that. So thank you very much. I believe his name was Ashik. So thank you very much, Ashik. Today I'm going to be covering a label that is super sneaky, something that has been sort of lurking on my shelves and accumulating over the last decade and a half in my collection. And today we're going to talk about Smallville. Smallville is a German label that is run by Julius Steinhoff and Stefan Marx. Julius is a house producer, and Stefan is an artist that does the artwork. So if you find the artwork for Smallville intriguing, which in a lot of cases it is, you can attribute that to Stefan and his wonderful creativity. Smallville launched in 2006, and if I had to sort of tack some genres on the label, I would say that it centers around house, probably deep house with touches of tech house and maybe a little ambient flair here and there. Not pure ambient, but soft tracks with ambient touches, and you might even find shades of different dub techno, or yeah, I would say dub techno also possibly appearing on this label, just not with great frequency. Also, venturing into more pure techno territories. So with Smallville, you don't really know exactly what you're going to get, except you know for sure that you're going to get quality. I think it's rare to have a label where you feel like you can buy everything on the label. That just doesn't happen very often. But with Smallville, I think even with I have pretty wide taste. I would say 70 or 80% of it is something that I would like to own at some point in my life. So that I think that really says a lot, considering how wide they cast their net. It's like, even if this isn't my pet genre, this is something that I could get into if I spent some time with it and listen to it. So I feel like they're doing a great job. Also, in terms of the pressing and the quality, everything's good there. Whoever's doing their pressings and their masterings, they're doing a great job. So props to Smallville, and thank you to Julius and Stefan. Today I have 5 Smallville records for you. I have probably 15 or 20 of these on my shelf. And it's funny because I didn't realize that I owned that many Smallville, but it was like, oh, this one over here with this different color cover, that one's actually on Smallville. Didn't know that. And, as I was looking through it, oh, this old one from 2007, that's a Smallville too. So as I was culling together this episode, more and more tracks that I've really liked and adored over the years, but kind of like didn't notice what label they were on, have been coming to light. So I really enjoyed making this, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of these with you. So we're going to start in 2009 with this little baby blue one. And this is by a pair of artists, Demi Angelis and Jeroen Search. Jeroen is a Dutch name. I had to look up the pronunciation for that. I'm trying to get better about pronouncing the names for you guys, because I just feel like such an American schmuck when I butcher these overseas European French and Dutch names. I don't want to be doing hack jobs on that anymore. Anyways, Jeroen and Demi paired up for this wonderful track called Our Life with the Wave. And if that track names or concept sounds familiar, you're not imagining that. It's because Mike Huckabee did a My Life with the Wave release in 2007 on his synth label. Now, when they say the Wave, what they're referring to is this crazy alien spaceship control console looking thing called the Waldorf Wave. I've never used one. If you put one of those things in front of me and told me to make sounds come out of it, I'd probably sit there for hours before I made anything cool come out of it. But from what I can gather, it is a great synth for making those traditional chord sounds that end up being used in a lot of dub techno. So it has a history. It has, I think, a loyal following. And if you're like a purist and you want to make purist dub techno, I think the Waldorf Wave is a good starting point, from what I understand. So Mike made an EP based on this Waldorf Wave in 2007. It sold probably 500 or 1,000 copies, which is great in our scene. And here, I think they felt a little bit inspired. Jeroen and Demi came back in 2009 and did their version of a track using the Wave. And you can hear classic dub techno traditional elements in this. And one of the things that I love about this track, I picked this up in a Donato Dazzi mix somewhere on SoundCloud. It was one of those mixes where it was like every track that Dazzi was playing was fire. And I think I was Shazamming and getting the track IDs, and I found this. I was happy to find that it still sells for 10 or 15 bucks, so I was able to get a nice copy of it. And if you just listen to this, this has some really big room appeal. It's the kind of track that could have came out, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or yesterday. You can't really tell or age it very well, which is always a good sign. And it's really just bringing just absolute pure class to the dance floor. If I heard this when I was out on a big system, I would just feel like the system was just coming down in on me because this track hits hard. Lately, I've been scoping out David Mufang's catalog. He is a really, really varied producer. Discogs user Tim is a big fan of David, and he's been exposing me to different David projects, or David's also more popularly known as Move D. And I've been listening. Not all Move D tracks are for me. Some of them are a little bit maybe abstract or experimental, or just the thing you gotta love about Move D is his willingness to take chances when he's making records. I mean, he just seems to be just an endless pool of ideas that he's gonna put A and B and C together and just come up with really weird concoctions. So you never know what you're gonna get. He has a very, very wide swath of potential sounds. I would say he centers around house. And the reason that I wanted to feature this Move D record in this episode is because of how hard this track hits. Now, I don't know if this hits hard because of the influence of Benjamin Brune. I'm not as up to snuff on Benjamin Brune productions, but for whatever reason, Move D and Benjamin Brune went hard here in this track that came out in 2009. This is called In the Beginning. This is probably the darkest thing that I could find on Smallville's catalog, and if you listen to the sample here, you'll just hear just absolute depth and crushing hard momentum. I'm a Philly local, so in 2006 when Josh Wink released his Profound Sounds Volume 3 double CD, I was all over it. I had been a Wink fan for a while. I already had Profound Sounds Volume 1 and 2, which were Philly staples. You know, amongst real house heads in the scene, everybody sort of had that CD. You knew the tracks, you knew the track listings for the most part. It was just a prerequisite to being a DJ in Philly at the time to keep up with Josh Wink. And I think Profound Sounds Volume 3 really shows off Josh's studio ability. His ability to sit and concoct a mix, not in the live context, but in a studio sense, to fuse tracks together and make little edits and tweaks and keep the momentum going. When he makes a mix, it's not just I'm going to mix A into B. It's I'm going to mix A into B, and I feel like the energy drops a little bit when I come into B, so I'm going to add this little hi-hat or give it some more energy, or I'm going to loop this a little bit longer because I need more time to let this unfold. So he gets really strategic with his mixes, and because of that, you know, he ends up creating a product that, you know, I listen to Profound Sounds 3 probably 50 or 100 times easily. And when you get that in tune with a mix, you start to just discover more and more gems the more and more you listen to it. And one of the biggest gems in that mix was this track here. Now this is by Quince and Benny Rodriguez, and the EP is called the Novum EP. This came out in 2010 on Smallville. Now if you notice, I was just saying that the track appeared on Wink's Profound Sounds mix, which came out in 2006, and this didn't appear till 2010. Now, I remember driving and just wishing to the house and techno gods that somehow the track 7 Up, which is what I'm going to be featuring here, would get released on vinyl. It was just such a crushing track, and it also had kind of a Delcine flair to it. What it sounds like to me is if you took Richie Hawtin at his absolute peak in 2006 with the Minus Crew, and you fuse that with the big sweeping atmospheric ethereal sounds of Delcine, and those two sounds had a baby, that's what you would get. You would get this track called 7 Up. So if you listen to 7 Up, you'll hear just that traditional minimal bubble bass that it was called. It was just like a big, deep groaning, very synthetic sounding bass line. And over top of that, like I said, the very ethereal sounds of, you know, something like Delcine, and in particular, a release that comes to mind is D5's Flotation Tank, one of my favorite Delcine records of all time. So you're sort of getting this like super dark, very, very heavy, grounded track that's iced off with big sweeping synths, and the way that mixes is just unstoppable. Before I move off the Novum EP, I do want to also call attention to the B-side. There's a breakbeat, a sophisticated breakbeat track called Sweet Potatoes there, so definitely check that out. It's an underrated release in general, and something, you know, if you're going to spend $10 and you want to really appreciate both sides of the record and get two completely different flavors, but also 5-star tracks all around, that Novum EP is definitely a winner. And now moving into 2012, an artist that I've featured now a couple times on this label. I can never resist an STL record when I'm face to face with them. I love the bizarre artwork that STL usually works with, and I've compared him before. STL is Stefan Laubner. I've compared him before to Jeff Mills because they both seem to be intrigued with sci-fi and outer space and aliens and UFOs, and they bring that sci-fi eeriness into their tracks. I love them for that. And they all, not they all, Stefan and Jeff both have a sound that they more or less just, they have a set of core sounds, and they hit that core from every different possible angle. So you can tell that it's an STL track, you can tell that it's a Jeff Mills track, but they add different like funky flavors to it. And the reason that I wanted to show you this STL record in particular, this track here on kind of sneaking on the B2 is called Where Have You Gone? This is definitely one of the most pleasant STL tracks that I've ever come across. Like, he tends to be very dark, very low end, very heavy. And this, Where Have You Gone, I think would actually work well in a house set. If you had a daytime house set and it was maybe like more of a mixed crowd of guys and girls and people sipping drinks, I think you could sneak this STL record in there very successfully. One of the elements that I love about it is the lead synth. It's almost like it sings to you. It has a very sing-songy quality to it, and at the same time it brings that slight STL weirdness that we all love. And more recently in Smallville history, just in the last couple months, a producer that I discovered recently named Jacques Bond released a album with a partner that he paired up with called Vincent Drew. I don't know anything about Vincent. I believe he might be newer to the production scene. I didn't see too much on him on Discogs, but Jacques has a history of putting out great EPs. The one that really kind of got me listening to Jacques originally was the one on the Giggling pack, called the triple pack called See and Feel, which has a really, really cool build up, and it's subtle. When you sample it, you might not get it, but it's one of those things when your speakers are turned up, it morphs into this monster. So check out See and Feel, listen to that track. I would recommend from beginning to end to really get a feel for it. And if you like that, you'll probably like Jacques' other productions. And here you have a slightly misleading cover, because if you looked at this and you didn't know what it was, you would think this might be something maybe with Balearic flavor, and you might even think that it's on Mule Music, but it's not a Mule record. And it's actually not as bright and cheery as you would get, the vibe that you would get looking at this. Aside from the A side, which starts off pop, relatively soft, by the time you get to the B and the C side, and definitely the D, it's like the album just gets more and more aggressive as you go from one track to the next, ultimately ending up in on the D2 in just heavy late night techno. I mean, not full-blown stupid hard techno, but it's pretty heavy for what I've seen on Smallville. So I thought it was cool to see Jacques and Vincent Drew just kind of create this album that has a really natural progression to it. and goes places that some of the other Smallville records don't. Like, for example, some of the other Smallville albums are very soft, they're daytime, they're very much in the deep house vein. And here, with tracks like Radiance, which is the one that I'm going to feature for you here, there's touches of tribalistic percussion and just an overall undertone of seediness that you just can't deny. That's all for my Smallville feature today. Guys, please comment down below. Let me know if you agree, disagree, and feel free to make recommendations in the comment section. I love to interact with everybody. That's all for today. To Julius and Stefan, thank you so much for the label. Keep the music coming. That's all. Take care.